For those of you folks that don't know, we've covered it here on the program a few times before. We've talked about the famous Alamogordo landfill dig that took place not too long ago, where they unearthed a number of old Atari cartridges and, well, lots of Atari paraphernalia was unearthed that had been buried in the ground for 30-some-odd years. And now the city of Alamogordo, completely within lockstep of what they claimed they were going to do, they claimed and planned to sell the, let's be perfectly frank, the trash that they pulled out of the ground with certificates of authenticity, and decided to sell it on eBay, which is, if you're going to sell trash, where else would you sell it but on eBay? It's really become the world's flea market, and, for better or for worse. Now, I was not genuinely opposed to the idea. It's like, if people want to buy trash, that's fine. That's their business. I know, because I've seen Walmart and people buying trash all goddamn day long. So that wasn't terribly shocking to me. However, I have found out that these landfill carts, because apparently there's a perceived historical significance to trash that was excavated from the ground. I just want to make that very clear. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about trash that was pulled from the ground. People are paying big money on the eBay, on the internet auction sites, to get a hold of trash that came out of the ground. Now, Kid Shoryuken, you've been following this just as I have, and I'm sure you've been laughing along just as much. Now, do you have any impressions? Because you and I talked about this a little bit, about how this seems like an anthropology study in and of itself, that people are spending their hard-earned money on what they know for certain is trash that came out of the ground.
Yes, it's really weird to me. It seems like people feel like maybe it's their chance to own a little bit of gaming history, because there was a whole lot of I guess mythos surrounding this for a long time. People didn't even think maybe it was necessarily true that this happened. But I mean, that's a strange thing to have mythos surrounding, throwing away a bunch of shit in the desert. That's not. It's not like this legendary event that took place where they threw some shit away in the desert. But I think that's really the driving force behind it. People think it has some kind of historical significance, for the past 30 years or so, hearing stories of this supposed landfill of classic Atari games. And then, they dug it up for, I believe, some documentary film or whatever. And like you said, if people want to go and buy garbage, that's really their own business. But it does seem kind of absurd, the prices that people are willing to pay for some of these ET cards, because they're numbering them like they're some kind of limited edition, almost like they're class rings or something like that. And the prices are absurd, especially when they know there's more. People are paying these prices now, even though it's already been stated that there's well over 1,000 more of these games coming down the pipe. And yeah, really weird. Just odd behavior to find garbage to be of historical significance, I think.
Well, it's funny the way you brought that up, because according to my best research, which I'm going to be perfectly honest with you folks, is not the strongest research. I did a few searches, looked around, and according to my best research, there are millions of these carts unaccounted for. Chances are a lot of them are still in the ground in Alamogordo. And you're right, there is a bit of a mythos that surrounds this. And I've always said that gaming is more than a hobby for a lot of people. I know that because you guys don't know this, but all the time, I jump in and I see what's going on. And people are having arguments on the 8-Bit Podcast videos from years ago, still having arguments with each other over one thing or another. So I've learned that gaming is more than a hobby. Gaming is almost a religion. And when it comes to retro gaming is definitely a religion. And this sort of thing seems to surpass the definition of a religion, more of like an underground cult. It really has all the makings of, an underground cult. People who desperately want to attribute value and historical significance to, let's face it, trash that some corporation threw into the ground out of their warehouse that was nearby or whatever. And I don't want to dismiss the historical significance of those games, because in and of themselves, those games are important, absolutely. But when you're spending your hard-earned dollars, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, because we talked about this. This was going on shortly before the program began, that they're spending top dollar, and when I say top dollar, I mean hundreds, if not thousands of dollars spent on trash that was known to be dug out of the ground. And now there is talk about people counterfeiting such things. And if there are people counterfeiting trash that came out of the ground, as soon as I see it, I am going to laugh my dick off. I honestly mean that. And I say that in the most genuine way I possibly can. Laugh my dick right off, because people are paying money for trash that came out of the ground when, and kid, you know all about this. You've been to the hard off in Japan. I've been to the book offs that we have here in the United States, and I see brand new sealed copies of 2600 games for $5 tops. Brand new stuff that no one's ever opened, but these guys are paying $1,500, $1,600, $2,000 for trash that was dug out of the ground. I find that very interesting, because it really has all the makings of, really a cult. And people think that this is going to accrue in value. It might accrue in value, because if you realize trash is zero. So if if suddenly it's worth a couple of bucks, that definitely is accruing in value, but the money you spent to get involved in it it's interesting, because there's also people that think that there might be scalpers involved. There might be the resellers are gonna put these in their stores and expect top dollar for them. That to me is absolutely fascinating, because again, there are millions of these carts that are unaccounted for, and chances are they're all in the ground. And also, there's the talk that the city of Alamogordo could potentially, again, delve into the ground in the landfill and exhume more of this to continue to sell in online auctions, which of course is only going to pollute the market and drag down the cost of the initial batches, obviously. But then you got to think about shit that has been buried, silicone boards that have been buried underground for 30 fucking years. See? That's the first F word of the night, so you notice that we're having plenty to drink and we're throwing journalistic integrity out the window. But 30 fucking years, you have any idea what happens to electronic components that have been underground for 30 years? Not to mention the shit that was dumped next to it. They're going to exhume this stuff and unleash who knows what kind of horror on the city of Alamogordo if they so choose. Now, mind you, it's not going to be like 28 days later, or it might be, we don't know. But... kid, you're a smart guy. Is there validity to my statement that this is almost seems like to have sort of a cult-esque ambiance to it?